Hello, everyone. Good evening to everyone in Europe, and good afternoon to everyone that's joining us from North America. Welcome to the first esports webinar from Women in Games. This event is sold out. All our Zoom licenses are maxed out. And to let you know, we are recording this webinar for posterity. My name is David Smith. I am the founder, COO, and esports lead for Women in Games. Women in Games is a not-for-profit now in its 11th year. We run a very successful ambassador program with nearly 300 ambassadors in 37 different countries. Over 30 of our ambassadors in the last 3 months have come from the world of esports. Women in Games is building a coalition of advisors and supporters to help attract and retain more women in esports. Everyone in this webinar can be an advisor or supporter of Women in Games, and we hope you will be. If you'd like to get more closely involved with Women in Games, we will tell you how at the end of this webinar. We're very fortunate to have with us today two of our Women in Games ambassadors, Emma Catfish Brown and Urszula Xirreth Klimczak. Before I hand over to Emma and Uszula, I'd like you all to do one thing for us, and that is to go into the Zoom webinar chat, and like what many of you have already done is put in a greeting. So say hi, say hello, say howdy, say bonjour, say guten tag, so that we want this event to be as interactive as possible. And there will be plenty of opportunities to ask questions of Uszula and Emma in the question channel. But okay, so I'm just looking through some of the great welcomes now. Fantastic to have you all with us. Now I'd like to bring in Emma and Uszula, if they can turn on their cameras. Hi, Emma. Hi, Uszula.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So Emma is now going to be hosting this session, which means I can duck out of it and appear right back at the very end. So we're all looking forward to this very much. Have a good session.
Thank you, David. So first of all, I guess I'll just introduce myself a little. My name is Emma, and I'm a Women in Games ambassador, but I also work as an administrator for their Discord, newly put together Discord server. I also run my own server where we manage 5 Overwatch teams, the majority of which are female. All female teams, but we also have a number of non-binary members on our server, and we sort of try and have a focus on female and LGBTQIA players. We're looking to sort of expand into more games and have recently partnered with Women in Games. So it's a really exciting opportunity to be able to be here, be able to talk to you guys a little bit about performance coaching as well. And Ursula, if you'd like to just introduce yourself briefly.
Yes, hello, I'm Ursula, I'm from Poland. I'm in esports for 6 years now. I work as a performance coach. My previous experience was strictly business related. I've been manager over highly competitive sales teams, and I've learned quite a lot from that environment, and graduated business psychology, and right now I'm focusing what I'm doing the best, which is improving team's performance as well as individual performance, and in the end, bringing the organizations what they need so it calls results. I've been working with teams like Fnatic, Roccat, TSM, and many, many more, as well as European Masters teams like Games Origen. And I work with titles like League of Legends, CSGO, FIFA. Lately, I've also been trying myself in poker, poker players. So yeah, right now, just bringing all my passion and all my knowledge to help individuals to be better at what they do.
Thank you very much for that. So I guess we'll start out with, for those of you, who maybe aren't, hugely aware of what performance coaching is, or, why it's so required in esports, we'll go ahead and sort of ask, what is performance coaching? Why do you think that it is a priority for teams at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, performance coaching is definitely something or a discipline that is capable of maximizing potential and individual capabilities of players, teams, and organizations. And I can definitely say that my role is not only limiting to individual to individual players, but I work quite a lot with team as a whole group, as a whole unit, and also with organization. And if I am about to talk about the percentage of my work, I would say that 65% of my work is the work with coaches, managers, and 35% is mostly focusing on individual players. When I work while doing my work with teams, I definitely try to recognize what the issues are inside, and then I try to create an environment where the players are comfortable, where the players can grow themselves, develop themselves, as well as I am the person that is identifying different kind of blocks. I help the organizations to set smart goals that are a motivation for the players, not necessarily a kind of discouragement, because that also happen. I definitely work on developing individual skills and maximizing the strengths. So I definitely encourage teams to focus on growing strengths, not necessarily let's say working on the weaknesses, because this is like a very often approach that is used by the coaches, that we have to get rid of all your weaknesses, they have to be your strength. Now, like it's impossible sometimes to do it, but I will be talking about it later on. And I'm the kind of a person that is waking up the desire in players to achieve more. So through working with individual motivation, I inspire players to achieve more, to be better, and I also address and overcome with the teams all the negative behaviors that have impact on their results.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
yeah.
Do you find that chemistry is something that you have to work a lot on in teams, or do you find that that's sort of something that's already standing within the team and you come in to look at more of the performance side of things?
Definitely chemistry is something that is lacking, and every time I step into a team, the first thing what I'm looking at is looking at how the team is feeling together, like if the players have this kind of a bond, or there are like 5 individuals that every single person wants to achieve something for themselves, not necessarily looking at the same direction.
Mm-hmm. All right. So can you share with us maybe what the secrets are to building a long-lasting team?
Absolutely.
I'm sure a lot of people were keen for that one.
I mean, the key in here is to, first of all, when I jump into a team, I have a lot of stuff to do. But the first thing I want to always do with a team is to recognize what kind of goals the team have. The teams usually have set up for themselves goals that are completely not achievable. Mm-hmm. So if we have, let's say, a lineup of players that are just starting, it's the first season for them, and the goal of the organization is to be a top 1 in particular region, we know that this goal is definitely not achievable. So what will happen during the split or during the season? The players will simply give up on trying to achieve what the goal is, because for them it's like it's not there yet. So the goals have to be set up step by step. That is why I mentioned at the very beginning that I work a lot with the organization, also with managers and coaches, to make sure that the structure that is built around the team is structure that it is a structure that is welcoming the players and is helping them out to feel comfortable in the team. So once I jump into the team, so I focus on the goals, and then I check what can I do to recruit the players to achieve the goals. Or if the team is already let's say recruited, then I'm checking whether the players' mindset is there to achieve the goals that are set up by the organization. So recruitment is like a second thing that is really important for every team. And of course, the goals need to go along with the budget, because very often a mistake of the player of the organization with a low budget are that they're trying to hire really expensive players where it turns out during the season that they're not capable of paying them the amount, or maybe they're not capable of meeting every expectations that the player has. So it's always better to take it step by step. So if it's a new organization, it's good to have recruited players that are less experienced, but then these are like little diamonds that every organization is able to shape the way they want. So with the good coaching stuff, every player can be turned into diamond and into a shining star, but all is needed is the knowledge and resources. Then I'm also, as a third step when I jump into a team, is I'm looking at the expectations. The expectations are sometimes and the pressure is sometimes like so overwhelming for the players that they do not feel themselves comfortable in a team. So instead of being there, feeling comfortable, the players feel scared. The players feel that they will be fired any day soon, or they will lose their career because of something. And instead of focusing on their play or on their gameplay and on what they're doing, they're simply, focusing their mind on not making any mistakes, which ends up in block, and then it's even worse. So sometimes I also have to balance the expectations from the organization towards the players. And the fourth point, which is like really critical, is the task distribution. As we know, in every team there are roles that every player has its role to fulfill. And often, and I will use the League of Legends example, often the roles are like totally not matched with the soft skills that the player has. So for example, if a player is like really quiet, is not talking much, and the team requires the person to be a shot caller or a person that communicates a lot, then it means that, well, it will not go along. So basically the player, it ends up in like totally miscommunication. The team is not, the communication in team simply fails. So everything, instead of being spot on and sharp, is like totally messy. So instead of focusing on the games, the players like keep on repeating questions. Hey, what should we do? Are you ready? Like, where are you now? Like, instead of just having pure, let's say, phrases or sentences that are like totally directive to people. So go here, do this, let's do that. They have like lots of hesitations and doubts, which ends up in like totally miscommunication, and then it's a fail. Usually it's a fail game. Very important is spotting the right leader in the team. So that would be my fifth point. In teams, very often there are people that want to be a leader. Like they feel that, hey, I'm the most experienced person in the team and I will be a leader. Sometimes these people not necessarily have the trust of the remaining team members, and they have no personality that allows them to be a leader. So very often in a team, there's always a person called natural leader. So a person that is having all the trust, that is capable of listening to others, advising others. So, spotting a leader is like really, really important, and making sure that this person is visible in the team. So, so he or she is in charge of everything that is inside of the game. And then it's adapting communication styles, which I mentioned a little bit. So the person that talks a lot should be trained in a way that he or she is able to be it a color and the styles, of course, and whatever inside games agreements are. And delegating tasks, which is also really critical from the coach side. So the task should be delegated in a way that the people that receive the task know everything how to do it. Because quite often coaches use the shortcuts and they delegate tasks which are not explained well to the team and to the individuals. And then there is like totally misconception or misunderstanding during the game that causes a lot of frustration. And well, and instead of having something that is really critical, instead of having, you know, topics revealed and discussed, we have drama and criticism. You know, when talking about this point, actually, this is like the longest question that I have, and I have a lot of stuff about it. So I want to share one thing with you guys, because every team to be able to perform well, sorry, it's not that one, it's that one, should be able to every person needs to understand that the team, to perform well, needs to go through all the phases. I hope you guys see right now the graph what I'm sharing. Is it visible, Emma?
Yes, it's visible.
So
all looks good to me.
So basically what's going on is that every single team that starts up goes through all the 4 phases of the team. So usually the forming stage is the moment when the team gets to know each other. There's like a lot of excitement, they're hyped that, you know, we start a project together, and the energy is there. But then there's this moment of storming. So this is the moment where a person wants to be heard in the team. One person needs to be heard. The other wants to have impact. The third person wants to be a leader. And this is the moment when everyone is starting to fight for the dominance. And it's natural form. It happens in every team and every environment where a group of people is involved. And very often teams, instead of trying to be patient and get the team out of the storming phase, what they usually do is they make change of the person that is mostly vocal, or like the person that is mostly problematic, and they make change instead of trying to move the players to the norming phase, which is quite difficult to do. It requires a lot of a lot of things that will be let's say delicate, if I can use it, and then the team goes into the performing stage. The biggest mistake that the organization make is that instead of getting the team out of the storming phase, they make a change to change the atmosphere in the team, and then the team gets back into the forming stage again. So the results are quite good, right? But they will never go to the performing stage if they're not patient, basically. So these are like, you know, the key aspects I'm touching when I'm speaking, when I'm working with the team, with the teams. And if somebody wants to read a little bit more about it, the graph is the Tuckman theory. And I definitely think that it's really worth applying in every environment, especially in esport environment. Yeah, that'll be it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think sort of the distribution of tasks can be one of the more difficult things. I find so, especially when sort of forming these Overwatch teams. Trying to delegate these tasks, and as well also coach how to do these tasks, because a lot of people who haven't heard of maybe the difference between shot calling and target calling, and the ult tracking and things like this, and having to not only delegate these tasks to who you think would be the best for them, because although it is sometimes dependent on position, you can switch it around just to try and make sure you've got the best person on it. And Absolutely. So to try and coach them on it as well can be an extra task, when a lot of people just want to start playing and start going for it, and you're like, no, wait a second, we've got to get all these steps in place before you go for it, come on, and sort of pull on the reins a little bit. So it's sort of going back to this graph, what would you say is the most effective way to get out of that storming phase?
Yeah, it's like there is no standard recipe like how to get the team out of the storming phase, because team is different, and in every team the reason for the storming phase is different. It can be lack of trust, it can be lack of accountability, it can be any other reason that is actually causing the storming phase. That is why I always craft my development plan to the team I'm joining. So how do I do it? I basically start off with teams having one-to-ones with the individual players, and I need to do a research what's going on in the team. Once I have the key information, I prepare a workshop that is like really depending on the issues I'm seeing in the team. And usually during the workshop, I'm encouraging Patrick Lencioni model, which is connected with the team dysfunctions, and I'll be talking a little bit about that in a second. Then I have to facilitate the so-called clearing out session, and this is like a really delicate subject, because the clearing out session is quite difficult to do, even though it sounds quite easy. So what I usually do is I confront the players with everything that is around, and based on the information I have from the players. So sometimes I hear that this and that player is like totally disrespecting me or something. So once I conduct the players, I talk about respect in the team, and I talk about what's going on, how the team should perform, how the team should work. And once I have the information, I can just ask like the person that is the most problematic, like, hey, what do you think about respect in the team? And then the person's like, oh. So, there is this moment where, it's not coming from anyone in the team, but maybe it's like a general something I'm throwing during the workshop when the person thinks like, hey, I'm maybe this, this is something I'm doing wrong right now. So I'm kind of addressing the workshop based on the stuff that I found out from the players, from the coaches, from the managers. And this clearing out session is one thing that usually during the session, the players fight with each other, and not like fight, but they're arguing quite a lot, because this is the moment when they're trying to force their thinking. And this is the moment when I teach them how to speak with each other. So how to listen to each other, because this is like a very, very important that everyone in the team needs to be heard. Everyone in the team needs to feel that he or she is equally important, and everyone in the team should have a voice to vocalize the needs, but also assisting help, offering help. And the needs, vocalizing the needs, it's equally important during the game, during the important tournaments, as well as outside of the game during the trainings and so on. So, sometimes I've been into an environment where I've been doing the clearing out session with one of the coaches, and then the coach changed team, and he was trying to do the clearing out session, and that ended up like totally in drama because two players decided to leave the environment. So you also need to know how to softly facilitate that discussion so it will not end up in breaking up the team. So this is like the best way to get out of the storming phase, is to facilitate kind of a consultation, confrontation, you can call it whatever you want, but it's like the first step to get out of the storming phase. It has to be, we are starting from the scratch. So we are not mad at each other, we all build trust, and we all work equally to achieve the goal.
Mm-hmm. Just before we move on, I have a quick question given in from Monica, asking just if you could repeat the name of the theory, please.
Oh yeah, it's the Tuckman theory. I'll type it in. Yep. Okay,
great. So just sort of moving on as well, you touched a little bit on common team dysfunctions. So what would you say are the most common ones that you come across?
Okay, so from the business environment, again, I learned there a lot about team dysfunctions, and the team dysfunction. There is something wrong with my slide. Bear with me just a second. So I've learned there that it's like really important to understand. Okay, should be fine now. What are the roots of team functioning? And there are 5 key aspects. that I definitely like talking about, and like, oops, oh, there you go. Like, I like talking about it, and I like to explain the players what are the bases, that without those those 5 aspects, the team actually doesn't exist. So the first thing is, like, the first dysfunction is the absence of trust. Very often the players don't trust each other. They found themselves as the people that, hey, I'm the most experienced here, so everybody needs to listen to me. I'm the god, or like whatever they like to call themselves. And the rest is, of course, feeling like totally disrespecting the person, and there is no trust. So whatever the issue is, whatever the conflict is, they will not be keen to cooperate with the person. Then there is a fear of conflict. So this is what I'm doing very often on the storming phases. So I'm kind of provoking the conflict so they can clear the air. Very often people, instead of saying what they want to say about the game, about the strategy, or about the person, they remain silent. So they pretend that everything is fine. They're just nodding the head, even though their heart is like they're boiling inside. That no, I don't agree with it, but they will just sit and nod and everything. So it depends on the personality, but very often this fear of conflict and fear of talking what we were telling about, like, about the issues, about what's inside us, is somewhere on the side, and then it causes that the person feels uncomfortable in the team, that the person feel that he or she is not heard, that nobody likes her or him, and so on. Then we go with commitment. So very often the team is planning a lot of stuff, and they have these goals and everything, and not everybody is into it. That is why in the first moment I said that I'm checking the tasks, and I'm checking what are the goals and whether every single person is committed to the goal. And sometimes I've met that many times, that the people had their hidden agendas inside the team. So for example, they joined the team just to show them off, but in the end they feel like this is not their dream team, and he's just there to help out, and so on. And this kind of toxic behavior results that even though this is like a temporary player, or the person feels that this team is a temporary, the results are not there. And instead of showing and climbing their way up to success and getting the results, it ends up that there is, like, again, no trust, no cooperation, and yeah, it's really difficult to work in that environment without commitment. Then it's the accountability. This is like a very big subject in esport, because in every single team I've worked with, I've met a person that was thinking that he or she knows everything about the game, about every single role, and the person was interfering with other gameplay. So for example, if there was a mid laner, so the mid laner was like, I know everything about jungle, about top, about bot lane, I know what they should be doing, and the person was kind of teaching everybody else. But his role was actually the one that was causing problems. So he was focusing on everybody else, not on himself. And this is like a very often what we meet. So let's start with mastering our role and being the best at what we should be doing, and then we should be making suggestions to others. We have coach that should be facilitating that, but instead of being accountable what you are supposed to do, there's always blaming, there's always looking for like excuses to do something, and then it's like, it's not my fault, he didn't come to my lane, he didn't gank me, blah blah blah. So yeah, these are the stuff that are causing lots of troubles. And then there's this inattention to results, but that goes very closely with the goal. So as I said at the very beginning, if the goal is not set in a smart way and is not motivating the players will be ignoring the goal, and they will be just fighting for their own status, and they will be building their own ego there, and yeah, the team will simply will go nowhere with that. So I really think that the team dysfunctions are critical in every environment, and there should be recognized at the very start, because the sooner we recognize the dysfunctions, the quicker the team will start clicking, and the shorter the storming phase will be with the team.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so a lot of what you talked about are sort of team dysfunctions there, but you touched a little bit, especially with Sada, one person trying to give advice to every other lane apart from their own, the more individual dysfunctions. So how do you handle those two different types of dysfunctions?
I mean, individual dysfunction works quite similar to the team dysfunctions, with the difference that sometimes one person can be breaking the whole team environment. So in that way, I need to dig a little bit deeper into the person's mind to discover the player, to check what is the reason for his behavior. And very often during the first discussion, it's quite hard for me to understand and to find the real reason for it. But then with time, with more talks and with asking questions and a lot of guidance, because I always, when I talk with the players, I never tell them what to do. I always ask them questions. So why do you think this went wrong? Why do you think he doesn't like you? Why do you think there's a conflict inside the team? And then I force them to think, because if I would be like, hey, you know, there's a conflict in the team because the players don't trust you, then it will be like, how do you know that? So I'm simply trying to get the answer from the player, so he understands that there may be something, you know, that is not clicking inside the team, but also there's something that is not clicking with every single individual. So this is the first thing. So I'm finding the real reason why it's happened, why the person is, for example, having if it's an ego problem, if it's a hidden agenda, it's like a hidden goal inside a team, or like whatever the issue can be. Then I'm digging a little bit deeper into inner motivation of the person, because we all start our career because of something. Like I started my performance coaching career and I dropped my business environment because my passion to gaming is something I always wanted to do. And I felt like if I don't do it right now, then I'll do it never, and I'll be, you know, stuck in the corporate world forever. So for me, it was like, it's now or never. And I wanted to do something I love. And basically, this is like my motivation, what I started doing it. And everyone has different motivations. Sometimes the players' motivation can be to buy themselves a piano, to prove my parents that what I've been doing all my life is not just, you know, crazy gaming, but this is a professional world where I can achieve something, and also I can live out of it. So, you know, the motivation can be different, but sometimes during conflict especially, the players lose their focus on what's the key motivation, so why they even started that. So it's really good to, at the very, very beginning of the conflict phase or of working with the players, to dig into the player's motivation, to find out what drives the person has and what kind of individual goals the person has, because the individual goals can be totally different than the team goals. And then this is also a trigger for the conflict. What else? Then once I find out everything about the player and I find out, like, you know, what is not clicking, I try to craft a development plan for the player. And the development plan can be different. You know, with if I work individually with streamers or with FIFA or poker players, I also dig into what kind of schedule they have, so what kind of plan they have, and then along with the plan, I'm trying to set them up something that is not burning them out, that is not exhausting them, and that is achievable. So if, for example, sometimes the players have a plan where they plan that, you know, they play for like 12 or 13 hours a day, they have no breaks, no private life or anything. And I can guarantee with a year or two, they are like totally done with everything they're doing in esports. So imagine like a football player playing for 12 hours a day, like it's impossible.
Yeah.
And then it's a monitoring. Like this is like a really, really important part of working with any player and any team, that there has to be a monitoring of the results. So we all grow if we see that what we are doing is bringing a result. So I always encourage coaches and managers to build up a tracker of individual performance. So once they see that, for example, the graph of the performance is growing, then they are more keen to do it. And I usually do it in a way that I suggest to bring up some weekly assignments for development, and then it's like we're checking the assignments, and then the graph is building itself in Excel. So it's like really, really, really important to see the progress. And what the coaches usually forget is the praise. So if I work individually with a player or with the team, I always praise them for what's going on, but also the coaches and the players and the manager should be also doing it. Sometimes the praise come out of the players. So if they see that the person in the past, one of the player was like really, falling behind the rest of the players, and then all of a sudden they say, hey, this week you did a lot of progress and you're good, the player is like totally motivated to be even better and better next week. So the praises, this is something that is like totally forgotten, and this is like a really, really powerful tool to work individually with the players and also with the team.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just so that we've got a little bit of time left at the end for Q&A, I'll just ask you one more quick question, and then we'll sort of move on to the questions we've been given by our lovely audience. So what tips do you have for a newly formed team? Like if you had to say, maybe give 5 tips, what would you go for? First of all, owners, like owners, like this is for me like the biggest issue right now, that the owner wants to be an expert in every single part of the team. So whether it's in marketing, whether it's being a player, whether it's being a recruiter, a manager, or like whatever, you can't be an expert in every single field. Because if you're trying to do a lot of stuff at the same time, first of all, you're exhausting yourself, and second of all, you don't have the like up-to-date knowledge about the trends, about everything that is going on, and usually that causes a lot of frustration in you, but also in the team, that in the players that you're playing with. So I definitely think that this is like a no-go. You can't be the best at everything. Then the goals I've mentioned, like this is another thing. What else? Learning. I definitely want to make a bow to coaches here, that sometimes when I work with the coaches, it's very difficult for me to make a connection with them, because they're very closed for what I've been offering. And usually when I come to a team, I come with a packet of lots of stuff, so I can train the staff as well. And I'm talking about, I don't know, will skill metrics, about communication gaps, or everything. So I'm also trying to give them a lot of tools so they can motivate the players. They can work with difficult situations inside, during the game, during the drafting phase, or like whatever is coming up. But sometimes the coaches are just in a position that they think they know the best, especially when they're like young coaches that just, they used to be the players. They come to a coaching position, and they feel like the world is at their hands. But what they know the statistics, they know the theory of the game, but they are really bad at soft skills. And these are the stuff I'm teaching the coaches, and I'm trying to help out. And funding, this is something I tweeted today. Funding is the forced bonding. So very often in teams, when the coaches or managers feel like there is a clash between two players, they always tell them like, hey, you should be getting along, you should smile to each other, how about picture the two of you, so the audience is not feeling that there is a mistrust, or like there's like an arguing in between you. So the players, so the organization is very often trying to force the bonding inside with the players, but it doesn't work like that. Bonding is like a big aspect of starting teams, and it has to go through its own steps. And when you try to force bonding, it's like, imagine that you as a manager, you're being asked by the CEO to go with someone to have a picture taken and to smile, even though you don't like the person, or the person is just did something to you, and you don't feel like there is a clear relationship between the two of you. So funding is a really, really bad thing, and forcing the players to smile when they don't want to do it, it's a no-go, guys. And one more thing, the last thing, don't stress the players. And this is also about to managers, coaches, and the owners of the organization, because very often they're pressuring the players in the moments when it's not needed. And
by that they're creating so much expectations that even though there's like a really important game and the coach is coming like, guys, we have to win that, well, they will lose it. I can guarantee that, because their head will be not on being themselves, but the head will be not to fail the coach of what he just said. So they'll be playing cautiously, they'll be afraid of making mistakes, they'll be afraid of risking, and sometimes these are the key elements to win the game. And we have to know that the players need to have no pressure, no expectations coming to the important games. We can set expectations for the training, we can pressure them for the training, but when there's an important match, there should be no expectations. They should learn, they should have, they should be taught everything so they feel comfortable on a stage.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm sure that will help anyone in the audience looking to either start a new team or to help their current team just, you know, work a little bit better together.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move quickly on to the questions because we've got a little bit of a stack built up.
Oops.
So to start out with, from an anonymous attendee, they asked, is team performance coaching dependent or tailored to specific sports, e.g., you know, F1 or FIFA, etc.? So do you find that it's different between different games?
Absolutely. I totally I find it really difficult to not difficult, but like there's a big difference between the environment for like CS:GO, League of Legends. Like even though these are a team games, I work totally different with the players, and my approach is like totally different to the strategy, because I need to know what is pressuring them inside of the game. Even though, for example, the timers between the CS:GO and League of Legends. So in League of Legends, you have around 30 to 40 minutes of a game where you have to, you know, be responsible for yourself. You have no contact with your coach. And in CS:GO, you have this, you know, 1.5 minutes. Then you can take a pause, which is like not really something that you can do during the League of Legends play, because when you take a pause, you usually mute it. So the environment is like totally different. And in CS:GO, for example, it's easier for me to work on things like how to reset a player that is blocked during the game, because they have this pause to make a wake-up call, to do something with the player so they can bring him back with the motivation. In League of Legends, I have to use the tools that they can be applying during the game, and at the same time, it is not disrupting them during the game as well. I haven't been working with F1 yet with anyone, but in FIFA it's like totally different as well. So if I compare FIFA to poker, like it's different, definitely. Yeah. And also it goes for streamers. I also craft a different plan for developing and working with streamers.
All right. And we've got a next question from Ayan. So what is your personal experience of working with teams like Fnatic? Can you share any success stories of working with this organization so that we can learn more about developing competencies?
Okay, so usually when I work with a team, I have my NDA, so it's like really difficult for me to disclose things or stuff that worked really well, that, you know, that brought a success, that were a part of my work. So I would prefer to keep it somehow between me and the organization. But when I worked with Fnatic, that was the year of 2018 when they reached the second world position. And we've been working on aspects that were caused by burnout, by conflict, and also by bringing up the 6-man roster. So that was one of the ideas we came up with, that the 6-man roster is something that will bring something fresh, and that will wake up some of the players that were simply a little bit overworked, if I can say it like that. So yeah, you know, this was like one of the tasks. Sometimes it's not always that I have a contract with a team and I work with the team for the whole season. Like with the Fnatic or with few other teams I work with, I take a project and the project is like aiming to fix specific part that is not clicking in the team. Sometimes the teams doesn't have, like the teams don't know what is that. So they say like, hey, something is not clicking. We have like, I don't know, like 2 weeks to fix it. Are you capable of doing it? Yes, I am. So then I jump in, I try to find the reason, and then I figure out and I come with a packet of solution, and then we pick the best solution that would be applied. And usually I do it with the coaches and with the manager or with the owner of the organization, and then we pick something that will be the best for the team. So far, I had no negative experience with that, so it's always worked.
Great. And another question from someone else who's anonymous. What did surprise you the most when working with both players and their technical crew? Meaning, how far from being professionals are they compared to other sectors? So I suppose whether they're asking, is it a lot more of a casual sector?
If I compare that, the first thing that was striking me the most is that very often the staff doesn't want to learn new things. Like they're working with the knowledge that they have gained through a couple of years, and they feel that there is nothing else they can do better. So they are not really willing to grow individually. They are growing with the experience, with the networking that they have. But what they're lacking sometimes is the soft skills. They're not willing to research more, even to listen to some, I don't know, TED Talks or like whatever, like just to get themselves something new, be fresh with something. So this is like the first thing. And with the players, what hit me the most is that the experienced players are really, really hard to change themselves and to open themselves up to new ideas. Sometimes it's a meta change. Sometimes it's like the player that is coming to a team, bringing a lot of fresh air, and the person like that is really experienced saying, no, I've been doing that for years and I'm not going to try something new. I don't want that. So, these are the things that I'm surprised, because I'm always a person that is looking into new solutions, new options. I'm always like very keen to, when I see something new, I'm like, oh, this is exciting, I want to try it. And like the mindset is like totally closed. Like they're really, really change resistant. Like changes are really difficult.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with how meta changes happen in Overwatch, especially. I find it quite difficult just because it doesn't change for quite a long time. So people get very set in their ways of, we are going to pick this double shield and this is going to be, the best thing that we can run, or, we have to pick, X hero. They are, the best hero in the game. You can't have a team without them. And then for that idea to shift can take a long time, despite the fact that the meta's completely changed. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and with a negative mindset, it takes time, because if you have a positive mindset, it's like, hey, I should try this, and then the person, instead of playing with what they have, so this is something new, so it's like a fresh energy, it's like resetting what they've been doing, so new exciting thing, they're like, no, I don't want to do it, and then there's like a big problem out of it. So like, that's surprising.
So next question from Donnie is, how much of personality theory / psychology do you use to form a team or manage a team?
I would say quite a lot. I rely a lot on my intuition, and since I remember, I've been able to read people quite a lot and quite well. It's always been that, even if I was in high school or something, when I didn't like someone, there was a reason for it. So it's always been like that I had a nose that something is not right. And then my curiosity and all the tools I've gained through working as a manager and through my studies as well, I'm trying to use all the tools to get, what is the reason why I don't like this person, why there's something not clicking. And it's also during the interviews, I'm very it's very easy for me to spot when the person is not telling me truth, or when the person is trying to avoid a question, or being, you would say that sometimes when you feel like, hey, if I'll tell her that, it will sound really good on the interview, then I feel like, okay, this is not from the heart, like I'm not buying it. So I have this intuition, so there's like this personality trait that is really strong in me. And I would say a lot of theory. But to be honest, the university theory, it's like just a little bit, but the work experience I've gained. So working with the teams for 7 years in this competitive environment and learning how to excite the team members, how to motivate them, because the sales environment is quite difficult, especially to keep up the good results above like 100% over the long period of time. It's really difficult to do it, but I've gained my kind of a know-how and then I'm just trying to adapt it to esports. So yeah, definitely there is this connection between both.
Okay, and this next question from Matthew Watson says, "Hi Ursula, thanks for the engaging presentation. You mentioned that you encourage tracking player progress. I just wanted to ask, what markers do you use to track this progress? Also, how do you judge where a team is in terms of stages in the Tuckman series?"
Okay, so the first thing about the tracker, it depends on the team. Sometimes I suggest individual, like when we set up a goal, for example, for the week, for the players. So let's say that it's like the person needs to practice specific champion or like specific plays in CSGO, like whatever. Then usually I encourage to have this weekly summary of improving, of like talking whether we improved or not. And I don't want that to be only assessed by the coach, but I want that to be always assessed by the team. So if we had a task of, I don't know, practicing this champion and the person was doing it, using the champion during the scrims, then the team can assess whether additional training is needed or not. And then we put a marker on it. So it's like really easy graph, like yes, 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 yes. So if there are all yeses, then the graph go up. If there are some no's, then it goes somewhere like that. But sometimes I also use the markers that are connected with some timers, with if we want to engage someone on being, for example, on time for the scrims, or like improving the sleeping schedule, you can all adopt it there. And the graph can be, you know, it doesn't have to be based on one marker. You can use as many graphs as you want, just to show the person like, hey, you know, check this, this is your like this week's sleeping schedule. Look, this week you did it, this week you did it. So you're kind of going up with everything you're doing right now. So if the person sees that there is an improvement, then it's fine. And the Tuckman theory, it's like really easy once you recognize, once you speak with everyone one-to-one, you can easily recognize what's going on. So if the players are talking behind their back or complaining on one another, then it's obviously a storming phase. If the players are really excited about what's coming, but they don't know how to achieve it, or they feel like there is like, I really like to play with the players, but I feel like he's missing something, and I don't know how to help him, and then the manager and the coach also doesn't know how to help him, then I feel like it's a norming phase, right? So it's the moment when we have to kind of develop the player in a way that he's better than he is right now. So it all depends on what kind of discussions I'm having in a one-to-one. Usually it's like 9 out of the 10 times I'm called in the storming phase. So it's also quite easy for me to recognize that phase.
Okay, so we'll go with one more question and then hand back over to David. So the top voted question, could you please give an example of a weekly development assignment you may use in League of Legends to monitor the player's progress? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the, what I suggested in one of the teams, I remember that there was a really big issue between two players. One of the player was mid lane, the other was jungler, and sorry, it was not jungler, it was a top laner. And there was like no synergy between them, nothing. So what I suggested to the coach is to give them a task to prepare a specific combination of two champions. And we, of course, told them that the play this week will be around those two champions. So the week in solo and duo queue, they had to work together to check whether those two champions will fit. And they were given specific tasks to check it on particular moments inside of the games. And the coach figure out what would be the best combination to check. And they actually had to bring the feedback to the team. So they had to make a little, let's say, presentation, but without PowerPoint, why this setup is good, or if it's not good, why it is not good. And they had to prepare it themselves. And then that forced them to cooperate together. And in this situation, it turned out that the champions they picked, I don't remember what was it because it was like 2 years ago, but the combination, I remember that was really good, and they've been practicing it a lot in a duo queue. And what happened is that they've been using the same stuff during the official games, so nobody was expecting that. That came a lot of that brought a lot of like wow surprise and everything, because everybody thought that the synergy between those two players is not there, and all of a sudden, yes, it is there. So so you need to find, first of all, what's not clicking, and then it's quite easy to bring assignments, to bring stuff that the people can do together.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think that's all the time we've got for questions right now. So I'll hand quickly back over to David just to wrap this up. But thank you very much for talking with me, Uszula.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if anyone wants to ask some further question, of course, feel free to reach out to me as well individually. You can find me on Twitter as Xirreth, and definitely thank you everyone, and thank you, Emma, for your time.
Okay, well, thank you to both Emma and Ursula. That was amazing. So a great session to start off our series of Women in Games Esports webinars. I've got like 3 points to make as we close. We'd like to finish on time if we can. First point is that we have 2 equally exciting webinars planned for July. So on this Thursday, the 16th of July at 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Central European time, we are inviting Able Esports from Canada and CL Gaming from the USA to take over the channel to put on an amazing panel. This panel is going to be moderated by none other than Miss Harvey, who's one of the most well-known people in esports. I'm not even going to say women in esports, most well-known people in esports who will be moderating this panel. So this is on the 16th of July. So I'm very excited. Tickets will be made available probably towards the end of this week. We expect high demand, so keep an eye out on all your usual channels to check out for the link. Secondly, I'd like to welcome on this call all the gamers from university esports clubs and societies who've joined us this evening. We've encouraged them to sign up because our 3rd webinar on the 30th of July is going to be focusing on university esports, and we want to run a session possibly longer than an hour where we will be encouraging all university esports clubs and societies to be more inclusive and encourage many more women to join these societies. So that's in the planning stage, but 30th of July is our 3rd webinar. Lastly, if you still have questions for Ursula and Emma, we have a short-term solution. We'd like to invite you now to our new Women in Games Discord server, where Ursula and Emma have agreed to make themselves available for at least a little while more in the esports voice channel. Likewise, if you want to get involved, more involved with Women in Games, we'd love you to do so. And the first stage is probably to jump into our Discord channel. So I'm just going to copy and paste a link now into the chat so that everyone can jump off this call and go straight into Discord, where our 2 panelists will be only too delighted to answer even further questions. So 1 minute over. Thanks everyone for your time today. We look forward to seeing you on the 16th of July in our next webinar, or online in our Discord community. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, and thank you, David, for inviting us.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.